Hi folks, Alain here with Verge, and I'm bale grazing my dairy cow this winter on contour. Now I'm not going to get too much into the benefits of bale grazing because I'm fairly new to it myself, but essentially what we're doing is we're outlying all of our round bales of hay. We've got 4.5 foot round bales of hay that we set out ahead of time in the fall with our tractor, and we put them all in position. You're looking at half of them. I've just walked about a third of the length of my property, and I'll head back the other way here. But what we're doing is we're placing them ahead of time and then using electric wire, so just using portable electric fencing. What we're doing is we're actually laying out these bales so that our milk cow, Gertrude, can only have access to one bale at a time throughout the winter. And we're gonna set up these simple posts here, these simple electric fence posts ahead of time. Right now we've got one bale set up where she's already been consuming it. Now the benefit to this is that while yes, a lot of you cattle ranchers out there are gonna see a ton of what you might call waste, I intentionally bought too much hay so that I can actually leave some of it on the ground here as added fertility. Now all hay, or at least for the most part, a lot of good quality hay will still have some seeds attached to it. And so that our hope is that that grass seed can be then sown into our pasture. And because we're setting it on contour, we know that we're above, so we've got a little bit of elevation here in our pasture. And so what we can do now is we can actually set these out on contour and we can manage the fertility so that in the spring we're gonna have these pockets, very much like this, of poop and hay that we can then spread down the hill if we'd like to. Now, an added benefit to this is that we're also planting our trees on contour. And so all of this fertility can also be spread laterally so that we can then plant trees into the pockets left by the hay. And then we can continue to spread some of that fertility and some of that hay so that the grass can continue growing and rejuvenate and regenerate our pastures here for added production for our dairy cow. So it's one way of sort of passively spreading fertility along our pastures by just rotationally grazing our cow all winter long using hay. And so she's consuming this hay, she's dropping all of her fertility here, and then when she's done this, so when she's eaten most of this and has left some quote unquote waste on the ground here, we'll then move her over to the next bale and the next bale, etc., etc. Now we have a bit of a gap here before we get to the next bale, and that's because this is actually our dam site. This is a bit of a gully on our property, and so from this bale or a little bit further on this bale and then moving on to this one, there's actually a bit of a gully here. The contour line actually moves up and then back down. So we're gonna dam that off so that we can have a bit of a livestock pond here right at the base of our barn here, which is a work in progress still. And then we can connect that to another swale here. And so we have other bales on contour where our trees are gonna get planted, and that is all above slope of our pasture that's a little bit degraded. So we wanna make that a little bit better. And again, we're gonna be planting trees here as well. And so we're gonna come in and then we'll be able to dig a swale here, slightly off contour actually, because we want water to actually drain into our pond while feeding the trees. So we're actually gonna have a bit of a 1% slope on this one and the one on the other side there that I just showed you. And these bales, again, are gonna be grazed in the same way throughout the winter. We'll preset beforehand, we'll preset all of our fiberglass posts, and then all we have to do is come in with our reel. We have a 1,000-foot reel, and then we can reel out in the snow an area where she can have access, our dairy cow can have access to one bale at a time, while still having access to the barn. So we're gonna set up a little bit of an alleyway system because that's the only shelter currently that we have for our cow. Now you're looking at the aftermath of a pretty large multi-day windstorm, so you may see some structures that need a little bit of repair here, but this farm's a work in progress, so we're just seeing it in the raw. So this is our pasture, and we want to reseed this pasture. Now we could have laid out bales all over this pasture, but we just didn't need that many bales. It's just that simple. We have a single dairy cow. We spend a lot of time with her, and we just didn't need that many bales. So we're putting them in the most optimal location possible, which for us is on contour, where we intend to plant trees anyway, and where we can spread fertility downhill using gravity to our advantage. Now, cow poop is essentially sauerkraut, and sometimes dogs feel like they're missing something from their diet, and they may indulge a little bit into that fermented, grassy goodness. Now, if you're planning to plant trees on contour anyway and you have to bale feed your cattle, this might be something that you'd be interested in. All that we did to get started was we laid out our contour line using our marker flags, of course, and a transit level, and we marked out our contour line heading down the slope. Now we're actually going to deviate from contour a little bit because, as I mentioned, we actually want to drain water slightly, ever so slightly, on a 1% grade towards our dam, which is going to store some water for us for irrigation here down the slope. So again, you can sort of see the completed line, and then right next to where Gertrude is there, we have our dam site where our gully is, and so we can dig our dam there and store a bit of water up and above the pasture. And what you're looking at is about 2 acres of pasture here. And so this will be hopefully converted into a very lush pasture that will feed a cow or her calf and a couple of sheep. And then we can expand into the marsh, into the wetland beyond seasonally. With correct timing, we can graze some of those aquatic grasses as well without disturbing that ecosystem. So we laid out all of our contour lines, and then we came out here. We laid our contour lines in the summer with our transit level, and then we came out here with our bales in the fall, and we just laid them all out. We laid them out just below the contour, and so she'll be bale grazing below the contour line, which is where we're digging our swale, our off-contour swale, and we're going to be spreading that fertility downwards, and ideally spreading all of those grass seeds so that we can reseed our pasture using a feeding mechanism, which is also building fertility for the trees that we want to plant. So if you're thinking that you would like to plant some trees on contour and you need to bale graze your cattle anyway, this might be an efficient way to go if you can spare the what other farmers might call waste, but what I call a fertile gold mine.
Well, everybody's crazy, just a little crazy. Nobody is normal. What kind of crazy are you? What kind of crazy?